Hey everyone, welcome back to Record Rift. I'm your name, and today we're going to dive into one of the most tragic, misunderstood, and often overlooked events in history, the Children's Crusade. A story of faith, desperation, and tragedy that has been clouded by myths and misconceptions. But what really happened in 1212? Let's take a closer look at the truth behind this heart-wrenching episode in history. First, let's set the scene. The early 13th century was a time of turmoil in Europe. The Crusades were in full swing. Christians were fighting to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim rule. The Church had called upon armies of men to go on these dangerous expeditions, but what happened in 1212 took a different turn, one that involved children. Why children? How did they get involved in a military campaign, and what led to this massive tragedy? It all started with a mix of faith, hope, and a belief in divine intervention. Let's talk about the origins of the Children's Crusade. According to historical accounts, in 1212, a large number of children, some say as many as 30,000, set out from France and Germany, driven by the belief that they could peacefully reclaim Jerusalem. The story goes that a child, often identified as a shepherd boy, claimed to have received a vision from God. He convinced thousands of other children that they, too, could achieve what the adult armies had failed to do. Now the big question, why children? These were poor, often orphan children, many of whom had no understanding of the horrors awaiting them. They believed that their faith and purity would be enough to succeed where the powerful crusaders had failed. They were promised the Holy Land, and perhaps, an end to their suffering. The children's journey was brutal. They marched across Europe, facing hunger, disease, and exhaustion. They believed they were on a holy mission, but many of them had no idea what lay ahead. By the time they reached the Mediterranean coast, disaster struck. Now, here's where the tragedy deepens. Instead of being welcomed as liberators, many of the children were sold into slavery by unscrupulous merchants. Those who made it to the Mediterranean were promised ships to take them to the Holy Land, but those ships never came. And the children? They were sold to North African slave traders. Many perished along the way, their hopes dashed. Only a few of the children ever made it back home, but their lives were never the same. The tragedy of the Children's Crusade is often overshadowed by myths and misunderstandings. Was it really a crusade? Or was it a mass migration fueled by misguided faith and desperation? There's no clear answer. The accounts of the Children's Crusade differ depending on the source. Some historians argue that it was more of a religious movement than an actual military campaign, with children seeking redemption or a miracle. Others believe it was simply an unfortunate event triggered by promises of salvation. But regardless of how we interpret the motives, one thing is certain: the Children's Crusade was a tragedy. A lost chapter in history where children, driven by faith and innocence, were sent on a perilous journey that led to their suffering and death. So, what can we learn from the Children's Crusade? Well, it serves as a reminder of the dangers of blind faith, exploitation, and the consequences of putting hope in promises that seem too good to be true. But it also reminds us of the vulnerability of children, and the way history often overlooks their voices. The truth behind the Children's Crusade is not just a lesson in history, it's a reminder that sometimes, the real stories are much more tragic than the myths we hear. And, as always, the past has much to teach us about the present and the future. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as heartbreaking as I did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's forgotten tragedies. And, as always, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious and keep questioning history.